first of all, we are recording. The recording is not intended to be, it will not be published as is. We're just recording this specific Exploring the World of Open Education workshop sessions because we've offered them several times and recorded them several times in order to get raw footage from which we can draw clips to use in an asynchronous professional development opportunity that we'll be developing over the summer. So if you do contribute in some way, like if you ask a question or something like that, and we decide that we would like to use that in the whatever recording we end up publishing, we'll make sure to get your permission for that. But it probably will not happen. We're mainly just focusing on what the presenters are saying. And just a little bit of information about the workshop series itself. Like I just said, this isn't the first time we're offering this 7-part series. As part of the Open Education, the 2021 OER Regional Conference, we are calling it an OER Starter Seminar, but this is a workshop series that we've offered at Maricopa for Maricopa faculty primarily since 2018. And so we have, if you do go through all 7 of the workshops in the series, then you'll earn Maricopa Million's OER Practitioner Certification. Right now we have about 20. Well, we've had about 20 new faculty each year go through that entire process. Of course, this is the 5th one in the series. We already did number 1 last Friday, and then 2 and 3 were this week. And then immediately following this one, actually with a half-an-hour break starting at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, is number 4. We switched the order on those because of the facilitator logistics. So I encourage you to check all those out. And if 1 or 2 you missed, don't worry about it. If you are interested in earning Maricopa OER Practitioner Certification, we will continue the opportunity to earn that badge. It's just that it will have like a slightly different shape to it. But anyway, so having said all of that, I'm going to go ahead and get started talking a little bit. Oh yeah, the last thing I wanted to say to you, down at the bottom right, enroll in the OER workshop. That is the Maricopa Canvas, but it is a public course. And it is a resource. It's a self-paced workshop aimed primarily at faculty, but potentially usable by anyone interested in open educational resources. You'll find a lot of materials in there, not just about like what is open education and the licensing and copyright and things like that, but also open pedagogy, how to publish and share your work. So it's a good complement to this course. I encourage you to check that out and use it as a resource. Of course, it's openly licensed. And then this is the obligatory note about faculty professional growth. This workshop specifically is approved for 1.5 clock hours of FPG for Maricopa faculty, residential faculty. So if you are eligible for that and interested, please make sure that you attend the whole time and that you log in. I mean, you should be logged in right now, but if you have to log in at least within 15 minutes of the beginning. Stay through the whole thing. We are recording the attendance in WebEx, so you don't have to like sign in chat or anything like that. There is the evaluation and assessment, which has to be submitted within 24 hours. That is in, if you go to the conference website, you'll find that link there. And of course, then there's the form that you have to fill out and submit as well. So if you have questions about FPG and all that, you can ask me specifically, email me if you want, but there's a pretty clear explanation of it on the conference website to kind of let you know how to navigate the FPG opportunities in this conference. Okay, so now getting down to it, this is something that I like to remind, a couple of things that I like to remind people of at the beginning of each one of these workshops. First of all, there are a couple of really good readings that I'd say complement this workshop series and that in general give you a good sense of you know, what the world of open education kind of looks like outside of whatever planning, you know, our team has put together for these things. This first one here is a book of essays that it's a collection of essays that approach open education from a variety of perspectives, and I do recommend it. They're both openly licensed materials as well, so you can go read them for free online. So it's a good complement to the series. And then the second one there is an article published in 2018, I believe, and it was really focused more on looking at the different ways in which we can determine whether or not our interactions in the open education space are really reflective of ethical stewardship of resources. So I do encourage that as well. They're both of these together, you know, will give you that kind of the kind of larger picture, you know, philosophical kind of approach to open education, not necessarily some of the nuts and bolts, which we'll be getting to today. But one of the things, this is the additional thing that I always like to add, And actually, this was something that our keynote this morning, Shinta Hernandez, actually articulated as well, is that open education and promoting open educational resources and open pedagogies is about much more than just saving students money. As important as that is, I mean, we're all, I think, in agreement that it's a good idea to save students money in whatever way we can. And expensive textbooks and learning resources are definitely one of those ways. However, open education really is a suite of practices and a suite of values that can potentially completely change the way that we interact with students and the way that we disseminate knowledge, that we create, curate, and disseminate knowledge in the world. So I do encourage you to think about open education from that perspective. One thing, I'm gonna pause super quickly because I don't know if you can hear the binging on my computer, but I need to close a tab. Sorry. There we go. All right. So we will pretend like that never happened. So one thing that I think is important to do at the beginning of each one of these OER starter seminars is to just do, and it's great for me too, because I've practiced this over and over again. So let's see if I can explain open educational resources in 30 seconds, all right? So what is an open educational resource? What do we mean by that term? Well, first of all, open does not mean free. And open educate, not necessarily, right? They're not the same. Open educational resources may be free, but the reason why they're free is because you are permitted, according to their license, to redistribute, retain, remix, revise, and reuse. And so basically what that means is that if we think about it, an open educational resource is any work of intellectual property that has been made available by its copyright holder under an open sharing license, such as those provided by Creative Commons, or it's a work that's in the public domain, which means nobody owns the copyright. And because of that, you as an educator, and actually as a human being outside of the educational context as well, are permitted to do the 5 R's according to the license. Now, this allows for adaptation, localization of content, globalization of content. There are a number of different ways in which this supports academic freedom and promotes better student success. And at the same time, it also saves students money, which is great because we know that a lot of our students, especially in the community colleges, have some serious financial barriers that they have to get past. So the one thing, again, and I kind of inserted it in there, but calling these things open educational resources. Like if you go online, you find an image that has a Creative Commons license, you can call that an open educational resource. But even if you're not using it for an educational purpose, the fact is that Creative Commons license works in the public domain, are available for any humans to use according to license, whether it's for an educational reason or some sort of a personal, it could be a commercial reason potentially, it could be a creative purpose, hence Creative Commons. And so keep that in mind as well. In some ways, thinking of OER as educational, inherently educational in nature is kind of misleading, because really what it is it's openly licensed content that we just happen to be using for an education. And that purpose is irrelevant to the permissions that you're provided by the license. There are plenty of resources, more explanation about open resources and the licensing at other workshops in this series. Today, the main focus of the workshop today is not about defining OER or talking about where you find it or talking about practices for publishing it necessarily, although we'll get into that a little bit with tools. Really, what we are talking about today are specifically 3 different platforms that, transparency is important, right? We initially designed these workshops with Maricopa faculty primarily in mind. And so there were 3 different platforms that Maricopa faculty have been largely using in order to create and share open educational resources. Those platforms being the Maricopa OER homework system, formerly known as MathAS, and also Pressbooks EDU, which in Maricopa we call the Maricopa Open Digital Press, but we'll find soon that those instances have different names and different uses at different institutions, because our special guest today will be from University of Arizona. And then the third is Canvas, which is the learning management system that I know not everybody uses, just like these other tools, not everybody uses them, but we do want to take some dedicated time to just talk through what these things are and how they are used in practice to support open education. If you have questions, we have 3 different speakers. Myself, I'll be one, but I'll talk about Canvas at the end. At the end of each piece, we'll talk about MOER first, then we'll go into Pressbooks, and then Canvas. If you have questions specific to those tools, then please go ahead and ask them in the chat, but we'll have a dedicated moment for Q&A after each one of the facilitators. And then if there's extra time at the end, we can use it for whatever creative or, or meaningful purpose we can find. So moving forward, I'm just going to go ahead and pass this over to Seth Darty, who's mathematics faculty at Mesa Community College, and he's going to tell us about the Maricopa Open Educational Resources Assessment Tool.
And am I on? Okay. Okay, great. Well, hello everyone. It's good to, well, I don't see you, but it's good that you're here. So I'm going to talk about MOER. And before I talk about MOER, I have to talk about something called My Open Math. And My Open Math is a website that runs an open source software called iMath AS. And this software was developed and created and is currently maintained by David Littman, who is a community college math instructor, just like me and just like all of the other users. And he's located at some, I forget which college, but it's in Washington State. And I'm speculating here, but I assume he was just like the rest of us and was using some sort of publisher homework software like My Math Lab. And he was probably moderately happy with it, but he probably always had things he would like to see improved. And he also watched the cost probably go up every semester. And I think at some point he's like, I could make something better myself and make it available for free. And My Open Math was born. And, you know, My Open Math started as a very small community of users, but it's amazing how big it's grown. It's used by community college and university professors and even high school math teachers all across the country and even some other countries. And what it is it was created as its own LMS. So it's just like any other LMS you would see. It contains messaging, it contains discussion boards, it contains its own gradebook, and you can create all kinds of content right there in the LMS. You can embed videos, you can make homework assessments, you can give exams, and it's all fully customizable. At this point, I guess I should talk about what MOER is now. MOER, Maricopa OER, is Maricopa's own website that runs that same iMath AS software. So as I said, it is an open source software. So if a college wants to, make a significant investment in OER, they can choose to support their own website that runs the same software. And I think this was before I was part of Maricopa, but I believe our college didn't love that our student data was residing somewhere that wasn't like at Maricopa. It was kind of like David Littman in Washington State kind of had access to some student data. So they were a little leery of that, I think, but they didn't say you can't do this anymore. They decided to support our own website that uses the same software. But we still have access to all of the software updates that are done on My Open Math. We get those updates and we can install them on our own website. So we kind of created our own Maricopa community on this MOER website, but we're still under the umbrella of the even bigger My Open Math community. So it's actually a really cool thing. Some of the cool things about it, the main thing I love about it is it's just super collaborative. Everything you create on MOER is just shared with all the other MOER users. You can make constant improvements. I love that my classes, every single time I teach them, my course is like a little bit better because as I find little things that I'm like, I think that could be worded a little bit better. Or maybe like there's one particular homework question where I had 20 students ask about it and they were like a little bit confused because of the way the directions were worded. The cool thing is because I create the content and it's open source, I can just go in and change that. I don't have to call tech support. I don't have to wait for somebody in Seattle or California to make that change for me, I can get in there and change it like immediately. So I have this thing that I use to run my courses that gets a little bit better every semester. And I also have access to what my colleagues have created, and they'll share it. They'll say, hey, I created like this batch of problems for this class. Feel free to use. And, and we can look at those and add them to our course if we like them. So the cool thing is, like, the more new users we get, the better the product, because they bring in new ideas. They can create new content. If they don't want to create new content, but they have ideas for new content, we have other people in our district that can create the content for them. So it's just a really cool thing. And it's fully customizable. So you're not like, your course doesn't look like all the other courses. You can make it look exactly how you want, because it's your course. It's not a My Math Lab course or something from Cengage or some other tech company made. It's something that you made. So it's really cool. And like I said, it was designed to be its own LMS. But another really great thing about it is, if you're somebody that likes the LMS that their college uses, and you've created a lot of content in that LMS and you don't want to like give that up, the cool thing is, whatever you create in MOER, the assessment specifically, there is an integration where you can plug those in to your Canvas course. So if somebody's a little hesitant about joining the OER movement, it really is easy to transition, because if you're like somebody that loves Canvas or loves Blackboard and you've put all of this work into that, you don't have to turn that completely upside down to do OER. All you have to do is like remove the textbook that you're using, and you can plug in content that you've created in MOER that is completely free. And that way you still have your same Canvas course. The only difference is the students don't have to pay. They don't have to pay for some access code, and they don't have to pay for some textbook. So it's really easy to just stick with what you have and become a MOER user. You do lose a couple of the great features of MOER when you do the Canvas integration. That's why most MOER users don't. Most MOER users use it as a standalone LMS, myself included. But I have been able to get a lot of other people to switch to OER by letting them know, no, you can still use Canvas and just plug this stuff in. So it's cool that there's two different ways you can become a MOER user. And again, that's what we want, because the more and more users there are, the better product we have. So it's just really cool. It's not the same product we're trotting out there every single semester. It actually gets richer and better every single time. It's also, I've kind of talked about how easy it is to get started too. That's another great thing about it. You can start like at any level. You can just be a basic user. And to become a basic user, literally all you have to do is create a username and password and copy somebody's course that they've already worked on for 5 or 6 years. Again, everything is shared. So like, let's say we hire a new adjunct instructor 1 week before classes start. And I've done this many times. I've been able to meet with this person for 20 or 30 minutes, just like this. And I'm able to get them comfortable as a MOER user, like I said, in about 20 or 30 minutes, depending on the person. Because all you have to do is say, okay, I'm teaching college algebra, and we can just find somebody else's college algebra course that fits kind of what they want to do, and they can do a basic course copy, and they're ready to go. You just have to kind of change some due dates, which is pretty easy to do. But you can enter at that basic level where all you do is copy a course and use it. And, I always tell these adjunct instructors, I'm like, at any point, if you find some changes that you would like to make and you can't figure out how to do them yourself, just let me know and I'll meet with you again and we'll walk through it. And I almost never hear from these people again, which I assume means that they're very happy with the course, or they figured out how to make some basic changes themselves, because it is fairly intuitive to make some of the changes. As you become more comfortable with it, you can become a higher tier of MOER user where you're creating your own content. That's where you have to kind of go in the back end and go into the code, and you can create new exercises. You can create a new exam. but you don't need to ever get there if you don't want to. We even have a Google form now where if somebody is a basic MOER user, but they have exercises they would like to create, they can just fill out this Google form in 2 minutes, and we have people that receive that and create the problems for them. And they'll get an email back in a couple days. Hey, I made these problems. It's question 583. Let me know if this is what you're looking for. Again, if you're using a publisher content and you request an exercise, you're going to wait several months for that. At least that's what my experience has been. But in our little MOER community in Maricopa, we can get those things to you in a day or two. So there are a lot of benefits to the instructor besides saving students money. It's like I said, you make the course look exactly the way you want it. If you have ideas for new stuff, you can either learn to create that content yourself, or you can request one of your colleagues to make it for you. We do have a steering team that provides training. We do workshops. We did a whole series of workshops in the summer. That way, if you have somebody that's a basic user, but they want to learn how to create content, they can attend those workshops and become more of a self-sufficient, more content creator. And again, the more of these people we have on our team, the better. So there's just a lot of really, really exciting. I mean, it gets me excited to talk about it because it's so much better than my experience with the publisher content. I can speak to my own personal experience. Like, when did I get started? I got started about 7 or 8 years ago, and I wasn't at Maricopa. I was in St. Louis, Missouri, and I discovered MyOpenMath. And what drew me to it, I taught algebra classes and I taught like basic calculus, but I also, at my other school, I was teaching like some upper level math classes, and our enrollment kind of went down. And I got to the point where, like, when I was scheduled to teach, say, Calculus 3, like, it would be canceled because there would only be 5 or 6 students. And that was a real bummer for me, just because I would lose like a little bit of money. Usually I could replace it like with another section of another one of the classes I was teaching. But like, Calculus 3 was like my favorite course to teach. And when it would get canceled, it was like a huge bummer. So I had to sort of think about, well, what can I do to get more students to sign up for my class? Because St. Louis Community College was also a multiple campus system, just like Maricopa. And I was like, well, what can I offer that isn't being offered at the other campuses? So I'm like, okay, well, they're all using this $300 textbook like I am. Maybe I can try offering a free textbook. So I initially got into it like to increase enrollment, and it really did work. The first semester I used a free textbook and MyOpenMath. I like doubled my enrollment, and the class never got canceled again. So that's kind of how I get started. People get started for a lot of different reasons. You might just feel that students are paying too much for textbooks, and that's a great reason to start. But the MOER product is like so much more than that. It's so collaborative. You're working with people at all different colleges across the country to create content. It's fully customizable. You'll never be more happy with like your course than you've ever been if you become a MOER user. So I don't know if I can share. I could give like a 2-minute. I could give a 2-minute tour of what a course looks like if people are interested in that. Is that something? Would anybody like to see a course, just what it looks like in like a couple of minutes?
Well, it looks like at least one person in the chat says yes, please. So let's do it.
All right. So I'm just going to show one of my courses real quick.
Yeah, feel free. Okay, cool.
Can everybody see my screen now where it says "Welcome to MOER, Seth Doherty"?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. So let me just kind of show you what a class looks like. So like I said, it is its own LMS. I'm teaching virtual live classes right now. So I have the link where they join me for class. This is just a Google Meet link. Announcements is how I communicate with them. The Math Lounge is the discussion board. So this is where students will post their homework questions. So if they have a question with this problem, they can post it in the forum, and I can respond to those, or the other students in the class can respond to those. And the message boards are really one of the key features of MOER, just because it's so much better for math than, say, a Canvas message board or a Blackboard message board, because all of the equation editor tools and even graph editor tools are like right in that box where you post your message. So it's really easy for me to like use formulas that don't come across so well in just basic text. And I can even include graphs and stuff like that right there in my message board post. So it really is the best possible discussion board tool for a math class. It has a calendar. The calendar has drag and drop editing. So if I want to give students an extra day on this homework, I can literally drag it and drop it on a different day. That changes the due date. So the calendar is really, really cool. And then it's just set up like any other LMS. You have chunks of content here. So like my unit 1 has subsections, and every subsection I have links to the textbook. I use an OpenStax textbook, but for most math courses, there are multiple OER textbooks to choose from. And, you can change textbook whenever you want. It's just a matter of swapping out these links. So, I mean, I could change textbook in the middle of a course if I wanted to, because as long as I'm using an OER textbook. I can embed these video. These are just YouTube links. You can also embed videos into an exercise. And then here's kind of what a homework assignment looks like. There are a lot of different problems. They have multiple choice. You have actual where they do a calculation and enter the answer. I might have picked a section where nothing is super interesting. Let me go to a different course so I can show you like what a video. Let me go to an online class. So let me just open up one of these. So in an online class, you can make an media assignment. And a media assignment, you just embed the video that you want them to watch or multiple videos. So I have them watch these videos, and then I have them answer a question about the content in the videos. I picked one that has a lot of short videos. And then you can just ask them a question right there. And again, you'll see this link on every single problem. So if a student is stuck on this problem, it's so easy for them to get help. They just click on this link. It takes them directly to a post on the forum. And it also embeds the question they're asking about. Because I don't know if any of you experience this. Sometimes you'll get an email from a student that says, I'm stuck on number 4. And then you're like, okay, number 4 on what? What assignment? What does number 4 say? And you have all these follow-up questions, and you can't just help them with their question right away. So this system makes it super easy for them to get help on a question. And this is basically what a course looks like. And if you don't like the way that it looks, it's all customizable. You can make it look however you want. So here's just another homework assignment. When a student clicks in to enter their answer, all of these templates pop right up for them. So if they have something that's a little bit complicated to enter, they have all these tools that they can use that make it easier for them to enter their answer. And that's really what a course looks like.
Seth, would you mind just very quickly explaining both how Maricopa faculty would go about starting to use this, but then also how someone not from Maricopa would be able to get used to using MyOpenMath, or how they get the account?
Yeah. So at Maricopa, we have one person at each college who is a campus point person. And basically we are tasked with recruiting new users. And typically my department chair, when they hire new people like adjuncts, they'll give them my email. And that gives me a chance to say, hey, you have 2 options. You can use this option, which is great, but your students will have to buy a $200 textbook, or you can use this MOER option. And I usually facilitate them getting started. But we have one person at every college that serves as that point person. And again, it's super easy. What I do is I go in, I create their account for them, and I send them an email. Here's your username. I have kind of the same password, and I tell them how to change their password. And then I ask them, what course are you teaching? And I'll go ahead and copy them a course that they can look at. And then we can have a discussion about, okay, what do you like? What don't you like? What changes would you like to see made? If you are not at Maricopa, then you wouldn't be using MOER. You would be using MyOpenMath. And if you go to MyOpenMath, Actually, I don't know if I can show you that because I have a MyOpenMath account too. But if you go to myopenmath.com, no, you can. You can request an instructor account. There's a link right here that says request an instructor account, and you'll fill in some basic information, and somebody on the other end will set up your account for you just as I described. And it really is, like I said, it's that easy. MyOpenMath is a little bit easier too because they actually have template courses. So like if you're teaching statistics, you can look at their statistics template course and you can make a copy really easily. We don't have that quite set up at Maricopa yet, but somebody at every campus knows these are the courses that are good for you to copy and use as a starter.
Thank you, Seth. There's one question in the chat. Is this only for math?
Like I said, it was built by a math instructor. It was designed for math. I do know that there are some other people in other STEM fields. I think there are chemistry instructors and physics instructors that use it. There's some interest in building a computer science class, but it was created and is dedicated to math. But there are some other science users. I don't know that there's anything to offer to like a literature user that you couldn't build something else, because you wouldn't need any of the equation editors and the algorithmically generated math assessments. But yeah, it's designed for math, but there are some other users in some other disciplines.
So thank you again. Are there any other questions about MOER or MyOpenMath that we can ask? I'll just add one little bit. Thank you so much, Seth. That's really great. I'm so grateful for you helping us out. You know, as an English faculty myself, I do not use MOER myself. And like you said, you know, it's designed for math faculty, but I will say this, that as an open source learning management system, there's really not, at least from what I've seen, there's really not anything that Canvas does that MOER couldn't do, you know, when it comes to, you know, and everything you just showed us. I mean, they're basically like content pages in Canvas and modules and things like that. So, you know, it's kind of like an open source version of a learning management system that if someone were interested, there's no reason why they couldn't use it in any discipline they wanted. And the other thing that I wanted to say too, before we transition over and start talking about Pressbooks, is actually, and I'm going to go ahead and start and share my screen again so that you can see the, let's see, oh, I got out of my tab. Here we go. Okay, so one thing I did want to add is that, again, one more note about the story of MOER. You know, we at Maricopa, the Maricopa steering team has done our best to try to support the use of MathAS, formerly called MathAS, now MOER, across our district. But there was a time a few years back when, because it was, you know, software that was developed, and the way that it was developed and the way that it was being used in our district, district IT had some issues with like some of the security. This is early. This is like years ago. Had some issues with like some of the security features. And as Seth said, with respect to the other, you know, the data issue, what they did was, instead of deciding, okay, we're going to scrap this and we're going to, you know, find some other tool to use or encourage faculty to use a tool that, you know, is more secure, what we ended up doing, this is the value of the open source, is we ended up seeing the value this is to our students. And I would say by far this tool saves students in Maricopa more money on learning resources than any other tool that we use. I mean, there are like thousands of students every year that use this. Some of the colleges, almost all of the math courses are using this tool instead of, you know, access codes that cost $150 or whatever. So anyway, the point is that our district administration and information technology services saw that it was so valuable to our students that rather than getting rid of it and finding something else, they decided to invest in hiring a private, like a security firm, to basically kind of patch up the software so that it was like overhauled in a sense. So it went through a security overhaul. And then also at the same time, the MOER team that Seth was talking about earlier also got together to do like accessibility review and content reviews and things like that. So this whole overhaul happened And then, at least with respect to the security aspect, that source code, that updated, more secure code, got like released back into the community because it's an open source license. And as a result of it, what we did in Maricopa to improve the software was shared back with the community, which is what just another one of those examples I always like to stress. And maybe I'm belaboring the point, but it is that idea that we're not relying on other like a software company or a publishing company or something like that to make the changes. We're able to kind of do that as a community and support other members of the community, because then they can adopt the improved software as well. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there as well as it kind of help provide that additional context.
Yeah,
So yeah, go ahead.
I'll just add, like, even though like somebody hearing that story is like, oh, well, like Maricopa broke off of My Open Math and like we're leaving, we're going to create our own website. To a certain extent, that's true. But because we also offered all of that investment back to My Open Math, we're like still like friends with My Open Math, basically. So like I said, any improvements made on their end, we still benefit from all of that, even though like we made our own like separate website. We're still we have our own team, but we're still part of the big team as well, which is like really cool. I don't know how often that happens in the real world.
Yeah, and it may be sometime very soon that we actually end up migrating back over to the My Open Math servers, just because things have changed and now it's a different story. So anyway, thank you for giving us that top-down view. If you are a participant and you're interested in asking further questions, please feel free to email me, and I'll get you in. If you're Maricopa faculty, I'll get you in touch with whoever the point of contact is at your college. And if you're outside of Maricopa, it probably would be best to go straight to My Open Math if you have questions, but feel free, of course, to contact me as well. And I'll say contact Seth too. He'll probably answer his emails. So having said all of that, I'm going to switch right over to Chris Strange, who is joining us from distant Tucson, Arizona, at the University of Arizona. She's the Assistant Director of Technology and Innovation at the University of Arizona, and she's going to talk to us about Pressbooks, specifically Pressbooks EDU, which, like I said earlier, is in Maricopa. We have our own instance of it, and we are branding it as the Maricopa Open Digital Press, aka Mod Press. But I'll let Chris take over from here.
Awesome, and I will share my screen as soon as I find buttons. There we go. Maybe. One of these days it'll share. There we go. Okay. So my name is Chris Strange. I am the Assistant Director of Technology and Innovation. So basically my job is I get to play with all kinds of cool technologies and make them available to faculty members who want to use them. And one of the ones that has fallen onto my plate, thanks to our amazing OER librarian, has been Pressbooks. And basically what Pressbooks is, its website, pressbooks.com, it is an online content and courseware development software. So basically, if you have ever read an ebook, it's kind of like creating an ebook, only a lot easier. And if you are curious about a little bit more information, if you don't have access to Pressbooks, or if your institution doesn't have Pressbooks, you can click on Find Out More, either for self-published or publishers or for faculty authors. You do get one book free. So if you have dreams of publishing your own open education resource available for everybody, it's really easy. And I want to show you guys what it looks like. So there is... I had a faculty member come to me and say, there's this really cool human nutrition book that I want to use. It was put out by the University of Hawaii. Can I use it? And of course I was like, well, let's dig in and find out. And so this became my demo book because it's amazing, and they fully used Pressbooks for everything that it was. So it's a great way for you to see what it looks like. And for students, it looks like this. As soon as they land on it, they can click Read Book, and they're taken into the book. So you can navigate by the content panel here on the left. And I'll just go to chapter 1 because that's the one that we've been playing with. And you can make it as pretty or as plain as you like. And so as you scroll through, you'll see these yellow things. And if you click on it, it has Hypothesis built in. Hypothesis is a social annotation tool where students can highlight and say they want to annotate. And they can come in. Oh, I have to log in first. Always, never works out for me. They can come in and make notes. There we go. Let's try this again. Gonna annotate, and now I can make a note. These look like really cool words about food. And I have a choice to post it to public, or I can click this little down arrow and make it only available to myself. So with Hypothesis, just to let y'all know, when I was doing my PhD studies, I used Hypothesis to annotate all of the text that I needed to do my my comp exams. So that way I could go in, I could search for them, I can see where everything was. So only me means that it's posted only to you. Public means that it's available to the whole wide world. So as you can see in my many demos, I have people who have responded to me, showing how it goes back and forth. And my students will actually have conversations in Hypothesis. So they'll open up a question and they can respond to each other. The other really cool thing about Hypothesis is, as we all teach words, like the vernacular that they have to have as a part of their discipline or their future discipline, you can give them vocabulary words in context. So if I had no idea what water was, I could click here and I can see that water is the universal chemical solvent in which most of the processes of life occur. Probably not how I would have defined water myself, but that's really cool. The other really neat thing about Pressbooks is that you can build in practice. And what I mean is with a software called H5P. And H5P can give you a bunch of different ways to practice what you've learned. For example, my vocabulary, the sum of all processes involved in how organisms obtain nutrients, metabolize them, and use them to support, I don't know. So I'm going to say eating. And I click check, and it turns out that I'm wrong, that it's nutrition. And so I can make sure that I'm getting these things right. And it's not just vocabulary words. You can do click and drag, so I can try to figure out if I'm right here. We're gonna drag some things around. That very obviously doesn't belong there, but that's cool. And when I click check, oh, for guessing, that was amazing. I found out that vitamins and carbohydrates are probably not in the right place. And so I get to keep retrying and repracticing until I get things right. To show you all what it looks like, because obviously this has to be hard, right? And I don't want to stop, go away. WebEx, you're challenging me today. There we go. Edit my chapter. If you've ever used Word 97, back before the dinosaurs roamed the earth, it looks really similar. You can type, you can format your paragraphs with headings, which I highly suggest to make sure that they are accessible. You can do bulleted lists, you could do callouts, you can actually do a read more if you want them to have to click to see things. You can do toolbar toggles. It's really simple to get in and start messing with things. And the other powerful part of it is chapter metadata. And so what chapter metadata, if you actually click on it and not, there we go. You can give it a short title, you can give it subtitles. If you're co-authoring with somebody, you can actually give the co-author credit in the metadata, so they get their byline in there. You can change the copyright status of the chapter. You can also give it a DOI, or input the DOI. So in my institution, a lot of times how we've used this in the past year we've had it is a lot of my faculty members are co-publishing with students. So we have a project that's called the iVoices project. It's going through its first full iteration. The faculty member that's running it wrote the introductory chapter, and as a part of their final assignment, students are co-publishing with their instructors. So they have to choose a research topic, fully research it, go out and actually do user research on it, and then they are publishing as a chapter. So if co-publishing with your students or having your students actually contribute to the knowledge that we have out in the world, this is a wonderful way to do it. And of course, it's highly intuitive, so students can practice a little bit, get to know things, and publish themselves. And another way that we've used this is remixing. So I have a couple faculty members who have a physics book out there that they're kind of excited about, but don't like all of the chapters, or maybe something isn't necessarily true to what they're studying. You can actually go in and change somebody else's words. So if I go into my demo book and hit edit, since I own this book, and then wait 7 hours for it to load because yay, internet, I can actually come in here and change things. And so like I can remove these words, I can add things. Oh, I can't. I'm going crazy today. Hello. So I can actually come in here and edit things and make it the way that I want it to be. So also, maybe you want to see what other people are doing with Pressbooks. As of December, they have an open and available directory right here at pressbooks.directory. And you can actually go in and search on subject. You can just peruse. You can, maybe you only want things that have H5P activities. So I want something that has a minimum of 3 H5P activities and a word count of at least 300. Oh, which apparently my numlock key is not on. So you can search based on this. Maybe you want a specific language. So maybe you're teaching Portuguese, or maybe, which was the example that Pressbooks always give us, or maybe you're teaching French and you want a French book. You can sort based on language. And they cover a whole ton of things. So game studies is my area, but apparently we have none. I'll make sure that my students are the first. Let's find something that we have. Library and information science. There we go. And so what you end up with, I swear I can spell. Here we go. Academic library instruction. That sounds really interesting. If I click on it and I read my book, let's say maybe I just want a pedagogical manifesto in my course. I don't want to import the whole course. I don't really want to do anything but just have this one chapter. Right up here at the top, I can grab this link and give it to my students. My students can come in here and read this, and we can have it as a reading in our course. So I'm going to pause. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, the remix aspect is amazing, especially for somebody who might be teaching comparative literature, where you want to pull in a French chapter and compare it to an English chapter, or have students write responses to chapters. So pull in something from somebody and have the students write a response to it. And there are ways to export the book. Oh, I should have shown y'all that. I will reshare. There we go. So let's say you do find something you want to export. I am going to go back. This is not the one I wanted. That one doesn't allow me to take it. Does this one? As soon as you land right here, you get the option. You can download this book as a digital PDF. So maybe you just want to download it, keep it so you can study it. Pressbooks XML will allow you to download it and shove it into your institutional or your personal Pressbooks. An open document gives you an open source document. So depending on the level of availability that the author has given you, you can actually download and use the books, which is kind of nice. So you don't even have to have Pressbooks.
Well, Chris, thank you so much. Are there any other questions? I know that this is it's a tool that you've probably, if you're a participant in this conference, you're going to hear more about. We have a hands-on workshop actually coming up pretty soon. Off the top of my head, unfortunately, I can't remember if it's next week or the week after, but there is a Pressbooks workshop that's upcoming, and it is it's very hands-on. So if it's something that you're interested in playing around with, we're actually going to have at least one person from Pressbooks to kind of help with that, facilitate that. So that's an opportunity to learn more about the nuts and bolts of how it works. But Chris, I do really appreciate you helping us out with this. I'm just wondering if have you spoken, or what kind of feedback do you get from faculty who use this? Do they find it to be in any way more useful than a learning management system like Blackboard or Canvas, or do they use it in place of an LMS, or do they use it along with an LMS? I'm just wondering how that functions.
So the way that we personally have our Pressbooks set up is that it's not hooked into our LMS. So when we have faculty build books, we try to enforce that the hypothesis and H5P stuff is just for practice. You can download I'm going to forget words all day today. You can download the spreadsheet and use that, like import it into the gradebook, but we don't have the one-to-one connection because it was an extra cost for the students. And we didn't want to do that because pandemic. But usually how this is implemented with our users is that they will use it in the same way that you use a textbook. We don't use it in place of an LMS. We actually take the links of what the students are supposed to read and put them in as links in the LMS. But that's about as integrated as we've made it. The people that have used this, right now I am working with a soil chemist. She is a chemist that focuses on, she does math, a whole lot of math is all I know nothing about what she does. But I know she's focused on soil, and there's a ton of mathematical equations that she needs to cover and molecular representations she needs to show. She loves it because it gives the students a chance to learn in the order that makes sense for what they're doing. But it also allows her to have more control over what's being presented to her students. And if students are struggling with certain things, she can actually add chapters in, she can take chapters out that don't make sense. She can restructure the way that things are presented to her students. She really loves it. And with the added LaTeX availability, she can put in different types of equations and build those things out much more easily than she could if she were to just use a Word document or turn it into a PDF. Most of the instructors that create a book don't struggle. Our students don't struggle. The iVoices project I had been talking about, we have last semester, about halfway through, we topped out at 175 students editing one book. This semester, she's up to 243. So they're not struggling. They're figuring it out, which is kind of nice. And we do have a ton of help videos that we've curated and that we've built ourselves, which is kind of fun. So if somebody is struggling, they can reach out to me personally and get to see my perky face, or they can go out and find videos that can help them.
Once again, I forgot that my video wasn't on. So yeah, thank you so much once again. Okay, so one thing I just wanted to add too about this is, just to kind of put it all in a nutshell, the way that I see Pressbooks as being valuable is not necessarily as a replacement as an LMS, because we don't have that in Maricopa either. ModPress right now does not have the LTI, the integration so that the grades pass back to Canvas. We don't have that, although we do have some faculty who are interested in it. And if you are Maricopa faculty, stay tuned, because we might actually be investing in that function, but it still wouldn't replace the LMS. It really is more of a really open platform for disseminating and creating and disseminating the content. So, and one of the things that I just want to reiterate is how easy it is to clone existing books. I mean, if you see something out there on the Pressbooks directory or whatever, you actually don't even need to have an institutional, you can go to pressbooks.com, just create a free page and actually start adapting the book there by copying that that URL of the openly licensed over. And so, you know, there's just a lot of opportunities there. It's not the only free or open source, like, you know, ebook publishing platform out there, to my knowledge, but it certainly is one that we found to be very useful. And I just wanted to reiterate that for us in Maricopa, it's open.maricopa.edu. I'm going to go ahead and actually share my screen as we transition over to the discussion of Canvas. But I did want to first just point out how it looks a little bit different, but it's the same exact tool. We just have a slightly different branding going on in Maricopa. And, you know, if you are interested, you can always go to the catalog and you can see some of the books that we've either developed in-house or have copied over from existing resources. So if you're Maricopa faculty, it's a single sign-on, so you just have to sign in with your MEID. If you're not, like I said, you'll have to find another way to access it, even if it's just regular Pressbooks website. And the H5P and the hypothesis as well, those are linked-in tools. Those are actually separate software packages, like Chris was saying. And so there may be some slight difference depending on what instance of Pressbooks you're at, like which ones are maybe installed, or which, I'm not entirely sure how that all works, but definitely encourage you to share any questions you have. And thank you again, Chris. So I think what I want to do now is navigate my way over to the tab that I want to use, which is really hard because just like, oh, there we go, stop it. This is that thing where when you're sharing your screen in WebEx, there's a drop-down thing and it covers up all your tabs and you have to wait for it to collapse. Perfect. Okay, Canvas. So there are a couple of things about Canvas that I wanted to share with everybody today. You know, if you're familiar with Canvas, it's not open source. It's a proprietary learning management system that is, but does have some really good functionality for creating and sharing OER. So, you know, that I wanted to kind of make sure that we do cover that because it's pretty popular. Obviously not all institutions use Canvas or are familiar with it, but there are certain things that I think will be very helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump in to, this is actually the OER workshop that I mentioned at the beginning of the session today. And there's just a couple things that I wanted to kind of share with you. So first of all, let's talk about licensing. There are a couple of different things that you can consider if you're using Canvas, like how can you assign Creative Commons license to material? Well, if you recall previous discussions of open educational resources, or if you haven't gotten into those weeds yet, there is a distinction between a collective work, which is you know, a collection of materials, wherein all of the individual items kind of like may have their own, you know, individual licenses. And then there's also kind of like a smoothie version, which is where, you know, one material is either remixed to the point where you can't tell one thing from the other, or it's just a unified work to begin with. And in that case, you just have a single license for the entire thing. So just to try to, you know, demystify that a little bit, a Canvas course is usually going to be a collective work. Any kind of, or a MOER course, or even a Pressbook, or any kind of, or even a slide deck, right? That would be a work that typically has a number of images, maybe there's several videos, different assignments, there could be chunks from different chapters of things all over the place. So when you are creating and sharing OER, you always want to make sure that you have the appropriate licenses and attributions in place. So one of the things that you can do with Canvas is if your course, actually no matter how your course is designed, if you want to assign a license to the overall course, and you can do this in Pressbooks, of course, as well, and in MOER, but not a lot of people know that you can do it in Canvas too. So it's actually, if you go right over here to settings, over on the left side here, and of course this will look different if you have your own institutional version of Canvas, but it'll be more or less the same. If you go to course settings, and then in the course details tab, you just scroll down, there's a couple of tools in here, or a couple of settings that are really important to notice. So you can see that there's actually a license tool. And if you go ahead and select, you know, you can select, I think it's private by default, but if you go in here, you can pick which Creative Commons license you would like to apply. Now, when you apply that license, I'm going to jump out of this so that you can see what it looks like again. When you apply that license, it automatically puts this on your home page, and I think on the list of modules and maybe some other spots in your course. where it says down here at the bottom, this course content is offered under that license. And then importantly, it also adds content in this course can be considered under this license unless otherwise noted. So basically what you're doing there is you're telling your students, you're telling, if you publish this, the public or whoever else the future user might be, that the course overall is licensed a certain way. But that doesn't necessarily mean that everything in the course is licensed like that. And you just have to make sure as the creator of the material or whatever, that if you are including additional specific things inside the course, that you attribute those things. Now, there's a way to do that too. One way, there's a lot of ways that you can provide attributions. One thing that I would recommend, now this is just a tip for specifically Maricopa faculty, but it's also something that anyone potentially could do if you have an institutional Canvas, is you could actually embed what is called the Open Washington Open Attribution Builder in there as a tool. So if I go to my text editor here, and of course this looks different than it looked like last year. Let's say I didn't have an attribution on this page and I had an image here or something that I wanted to make sure to provide an attribution. Well, what I could do is I could go over here to, oh, check this. It looks different than it did last time. Hold on, let's find it. It is going to be under probably this. Tools, apps. Is this it? Wow, man, I feel, let's see, there it is. Okay, looks totally different than it did last time I ran, even in the fall did this, but it's right here. You see it says Open Attribution Builder. Now, this is not like automatically built into Canvas. Our learning management system team at our district actually had to install this tool. And you can, if you just Google Washington Open Attribution Builder, you'll find that what I'm about to show you is a public website, which is openly licensed, and there was a way to just embed it in Canvas. But what this does is, let's see if this lets me do it. Yeah, so once I open this up, and again, this is a public website that you could just access, not even in Canvas, but we have it so that it's built in there. If you have an attribution to create, this helps you build it by entering in whatever the title of the work is, whoever the author is. If you have the URL that's linked back to, you just put it in there. And then you can see what happens is it just kind of creates the attribution automatically based on whatever input you have. And then when you say insert attribution, it sticks it right there and it's all formatted with the hyperlinks and everything like that. So sometimes it's a helpful little tip for those of you using Canvas, and if you're like bringing an image over from somewhere, or if you're, especially if you're creating your own content, because if you're bringing content over from an existing website, a lot of times the attribution is already there and it's just a matter of copying and pasting. But if I'm going to say, put my own image in here, and that image is licensed differently than my course overall, then I'm going to want to make sure to put the attribution there so that, future users understand what the license is. And this is a really easy way to do that. Now, there's another thing that I also want to show you, and this is more about visibility. A lot of people don't know that it's actually pretty easy to make your courses publicly visible in Canvas. In fact, there are a couple of things you can do in Canvas to more or less make a wiki out of a content page. And actually, if you go to pages, I don't know if it's still called that, but it used to be called, it may still be called wiki pages because of the functions that are available. So first of all, if you go down here and you look, you will find that there is also course visibility. A lot of times, I think this, obviously, if you have content, you're running a live course with students, you're not going to make that a public course. I mean, there might be some way to do that, but you would have to look into it, your institutional policies on that. But I don't even know if it would be possible to change it. But if you have a general content course, or if you're publishing a version of a course that you think you would like the entire world to have access to, like that's what I did with this OER faculty workshop, is you can change it so that it's publicly accessible. That way somebody can actually see your course materials without having to log in to your institutional instance of Canvas. And as you can see as well, you can also, where was it here? Oh yeah, the other thing I was going to say was that you can not only make the course public, but you can actually set permissions so that individual content pages can be edited by people other than teachers. So this is something not a lot of people know. And the funny thing that I find about this too, and again, I'm just randomly demonstrating these things using the home page, but if you're on a content page in Canvas and you say, you want to use this as an opportunity to have students collaborating with other students on content, just like you could do in a press book, just like you could do in probably in more pages. But in a content page in Canvas, if you want your students to be able to, like I said, work together to build content, or to, I even used this before to do workshop sign up. Like I would have dates on there. You just select edit. And when you're editing the page, it's actually surprising to me that some people don't notice this, because it's literally right here underneath the editor box. It says users allowed to edit this page. You can actually set the permission so that not just teachers, but also students can edit the page. You can even set it so that anyone can edit the page. So theoretically, if you set a page so that anyone can edit it, and then you make your course public, then you could potentially basically create a publicly something that people can collaborate publicly on. And so it would more or less turn any page in Canvas into like a Google Doc, that you would have openly like that too. So I think that that's some function that I think is really helpful. And like I said, you can use it for open pedagogy, but you can also use it just to do basic things. Like I said, for like workshop sign up or conference sign up is something that I've used it for in the past. Works pretty well. Okay, so that's just a couple of tips about visibility and about licensing. And it's kind of boring stuff, but it is important to point those out because there are a couple of good tools. There's obviously all kinds of other functions in Canvas, just like in the other platforms we've talked about today, that you could potentially get into the nitty-gritty on, and we're not going to do that. But I did want to take a little bit of time to talk about what sharing through Canvas Commons looks like. So just to give you a little bit of a background, for Maricopa, our Maricopa Millions OER project started back in 2013, and it was a couple years after that we managed to get Canvas Commons turned on for us. Canvas Commons is in fact, I should probably navigate over to it. Canvas Commons is the sharing platform that Canvas uses, or that Canvas has built to connect all the different instances of Canvas around the world that have it turned on. So, if ASU's Canvas has Canvas Commons, enabled, then if I publish my course to Canvas Commons, then it's really easy for someone at ASU who uses Canvas to search for my course on Canvas Commons and download it and use it according to the permissions afforded by the license. Similarly, anyone who's using the Free for Teachers version of Canvas can do the same thing. So Canvas Commons, you'll find tons and tons of stuff on there. I'm not necessarily going to go through all of that, but there are a couple of things that I would like to kind of show you. So first of all, when you go into Commons, when you're logged in, you actually have this little bar at the top that tells you about all the stuff you've shared. Now, in order to share something, it couldn't be easier. And what's cool is that you can actually share things at multiple levels. So if you want to share your entire course, you can. You just go down to Settings. And there's multiple ways to do this, but then Share to Commons. And if you click Share to Commons, then it brings up the same screen that it's going to bring up in a minute after I show you the other ways to do it. But you can do the whole course like that, or if you want, you can go to an individual page. Let's say that I created this content page and I think, man, this is really great. I would love to share this thing that I created with everybody, but I don't want to share my whole course. I just want to share the one thing, right? Whether it's a quiz or a single content page. So again, it's the same thing. In fact, you don't even have to go to edit. You can use the little drop down thing and you can share to Commons, right? So it's pretty simple. You can do it at the very granular level of page by page. You can even do it with individual modules in the exact same way. So if you're looking at your list of modules in the course, then what you can do here is the same thing. If I just wanted to share the Start Here module, I'd click that, and then again, I would just share to Commons. Now, once I do that, and I will do this, but not actually share it because I just mess everything up. I just want to walk you through a couple things about how this works here, and it's pretty straightforward, but nonetheless, one of the things I think is cool is that it actually keeps track of versions for you. So if you are updating, if you are sharing an updated version of something you've previously shared to Canvas Commons, instead of uploading a whole new one and then Canvas Commons having like multiple versions of that thing and your users like not knowing which one is the newer one and getting confused, you literally can just select, yes, this is an update, And then you can select from the list of the similar types of things that you have previously uploaded. Now, there's only one other module I've ever uploaded to Canvas Commons, and it's not the one that I'm modeling right now, so it doesn't show up on here. But if I were trying to re-upload like a new version of the grammar diagnostic tool I created, then I would select that, and it would actually update that content and include the notes for that thing. You click on this right here, and then it automatically remembers all that stuff, and then you can add the version note. But again, if you're just doing it for the first time, then you would not select that. And you select who can use it. Do you want it to be public? Do you want it to be, you have your options here, and this is probably going to look different based on where you're at. This is new. It says new right there too. I haven't seen this before. So a template or open textbook, interesting. You choose the license that you want to apply to it. I would be very, very specific and strategic about the metadata. Obviously, a title is a title, but when it comes to description and tags, the ability for future users to find your materials and the likelihood with which, by which they're going to use the materials has a lot to do with probably how accurate your description is. Some people will upload things to Canvas Commons, and in description, they'll put, "This is my English 101 course." And that's not helpful for a number of reasons. Number one, English 101 is maybe what you call it at your institution, but other institutions will have potentially different prefixes and numbers, right? So that's not very helpful. Think about keywords, think about being descriptive in a way to really make it clear to your reader what it is. Now, I'll show you in a minute that people who are searching Canvas Commons can actually look through the material, but you still nonetheless want to try to make sure that metadata makes sense. And if you are doing this through an institutional initiative, like for example, Maricopa, our OER project, up until now, actually this year, we've really shifted from having our grant projects published in Canvas Commons to publishing in Pressbooks. But for the first 7 years of the Maricopa OER project, we were encouraging all of our grant recipients to develop materials and publish materials in Canvas, because that's the learning management system we use. And so as a result of that, we wanted to make sure that it was searchable. So if you have an institutional initiative and you want to use Canvas Commons to share those things, then I would recommend developing a unique tag that you can put so that all of those materials are easily discoverable. And I will model that in just 1 second when I get to the search part of this, because for us, we chose MMOER, which is Maricopa Millions OER, as the tag. And we were going to do Maricopa Millions, but then of course everything with the word Maricopa came up and everything with the word millions came up, and it was a disaster. So finding something that's really unique is really what you need to do there. And of course, you can upload an image, you can select the grade level and all that stuff. Now, if you share something that you don't want to share, it's easy to unshare it. You go to share, and then you just click the little delete button right there, and it will trash whatever you have previously shared. Now, this does not delete it from the the user who's downloaded it already. So keep that in mind. When you publish, just like on Pressbooks, it's the same thing, or more, it's the same thing. Or a website, it's the same thing. If you upload something to the internet and you put a license on it that says, feel free to download and use and redistribute, if you decide in the future that you don't want it up there anymore, you can take it down, but it's not going to immediately disappear from everybody's hard drives and on other networks and stuff. So keep that in mind. But nonetheless, you do have the opportunity to unpublish it. And you'll see here what's cool is you can see how many people have actually downloaded and how many people have favorited the materials that you have uploaded as well. And there used to be a comment section, and I don't know if it's still there or not. Maybe the trolls, I never got the sense that the trolls had arrived at Canvas Commons. So I don't think that would be a reason why they removed comments, but at least you can still see here a little bit of data about what kind of reception the material is getting. And now if I wanted to also just find some random thing, or if I wanted to find something that's not random, why would I do that? But let's say this module right here, so safeguard hand washing education. Let's say I was interested in trying to put this one in here. I would go through here and I can actually preview the whole course. You can see how many modules it is. You can see what kind of files are in there. You can preview the pages. It used to be you had to download it into a sandbox course in order to look at it, but now you can see all of the content before you even decide whether or not to do that. And of course, if I had decided, hey, this is something that I really want to have in my course or whatever, then I just come right over here and I can import, download, select the course that I want to put it into. If you don't have a sandbox course, or like a developer shell course that you can use, then reach out to whoever your point of contact is at your institution, and they'll make one for you. You just dump it right into there, and then all the materials there you can start remixing according to license, and it's really easy. You can also download as a common cartridge if you want as well. So it's really easy to find stuff. It's really easy to share stuff using this tool, and it occurs to me that I think that's pretty much all that I have to say about publishing and sharing things in Canvas. And we're a little bit early, which is probably good for everybody, but I'm wondering if anyone, I lost track of the chat here, so I'm wondering if anyone has any questions.
Matthew, there are no lingering questions from chat at this point.
Okay, thank you. So are there any questions at all that anyone might have about these three platforms, how you might be able to use them, or this is also a time I would love to hear from you. What kind of platforms, open source or otherwise, do you find helpful to use at your institution in order to support your open education initiatives? Hi, Asmita. If you're accessing Canvas Commons for the first time, I think that you have to approve that, because I think it has to link your specific Maricopa account to Canvas Commons. So I think that's what that, I did that so long, but I do remember, I think that I had to do that as well. I think the first time you do it, you have to like authorize. It's kind of like whenever you use an external plugin, how it says like, are you sure you want this to access your whatever? The answer is yes, you are open to Commons forever. But if you decide not to use it, then it has no impact on anything. It's just basically unlocking a new feature. It doesn't like get into your stuff and publish things without your consent. At least right now, we don't know what the future holds. Any other thoughts? I'm really curious to know if there are any other tools or platforms that that participants here have found helpful. Because I mentioned Google, right? Google Docs. I mean, you could use the Google App Suite to do all kinds of stuff too. And we just didn't, that's just not something, we have access to that in Maricopa, and I know a lot of people do. I know a lot of people use, Google Sites and Google Docs and Sheets and all of that stuff, not just for productivity, for your initiative, but for assignments and things like that. Google Drive is a great way to share open educational resources as well. Any other thoughts on that? Well, I'm going to go ahead and interpret that as we don't have any questions. So thank you all so much. Again, if you were Maricopa faculty doing this for FPG, you don't have to like sign out or anything. We have the log of like when you signed in and everything, but you do have to make sure to complete the evaluation and assessment and then submit that FPG application. Thank you again to Seth and Chris for coming and giving us an overview of those tools, and for the rest of you for joining us. And if you are interested, keep in mind that at 2 o'clock, we will be doing the fourth one in the series, which has to do with some specific things to keep in mind when you are creating and publishing your own OER. So this one's about the platforms that you might use to do that, but that one is about, how do I choose a license, and what are some things I should keep in mind when I'm designing materials that I plan to share. So I encourage you to join us for that one, and thank you so much for being here. Goodbye.